Following was recorded in front of a live studio audience at the Studio 21 Podcast Café. This is the United Podcast Network.
Welcome to Conor Commentary, a hilarious take on news, politics, sports, and current events. It's time to buckle up. Here's Conor.
All right, guys, we're back again. It is week 7 here. I appreciate you guys tuning in. And I have here with me Dave Garofalo.
Hello.
Did I say that right?
You did.
Okay, I know you said it was Garoppolo, but with the F's instead.
Right.
Just like Jimmy G. And now he is actually the founder and owner of Studio 21 Podcast here, as well as Two Guys Smoke Shop. And you have 3 locations?
3 locations. Salem, Seabrook, and Nashua, all in New Hampshire.
Wow, there you go.
Yeah.
We'll get into how it all became into New Hampshire later as we'll talk. I know I was going to have the vape guy here, but he could not make it. He had to postpone, but we have Dave who's going to be able to discuss his, 35 years in the tobacco business?
34.
34, okay.
34. The vape is a very interesting thing that's going on, and he should be there spreading the message out there because Massachusetts outlawed, banned vape. And we're talking about 4,000 stores.
Is that how many there are?
4,000. And the majority of those stores are vape only. That's their whole business.
Right.
And without information, the governor ended up shutting them all down. And you got to imagine bankruptcy. They're saying for 4 months. But
that's a long time to hold on.
Nobody can handle 4 months. I don't care who you are.
Yeah.
Vape industry is too small. So nobody's big enough yet to handle 4 months of paying rent, heat.
Oh, right, absolutely. I'm not even thinking about that. I'm thinking about making, feeding your family for 4 months. I'm not even thinking about you have to pay rent and all the expenses.
Yet, the majority of them, I bet, have a lease in a building where they don't own the building themselves. And the landlord that owns the building, when you have a lease, you have to pay anyway.
Right.
So your business is closed, yet the hand's out still, pay me anyway.
Right.
And these guys are ruined. Their life has been ruined, and he should be on here actually talking the story and getting the word out, but it's not my job to do.
Right. So we'll see. Hopefully he gets back on here. I know there's an important thing he mentioned on the 15th, I believe, of this month, where there's some sort of legislation where they'll try and get the thing overturned, but I think it's all up to the governor at this point. But we'll get into the troll of the week, and I'll give my mom's pick. She had a great week last week, if you didn't see, Pete. So troll of the week, no one really trolled me too much, but I did get a lot of backlash from my friend Pat O'Leary, who was up here last week, who made the bold statement that Auburn was going to win by 20. They lost by 11. So he was off by 31 points, but other than that, it was pretty close. So a few people did reach out. They weren't too happy. Hopefully they follow my pick of the week. I had the Patriots minus 16. So I'll give you guys another one on Sunday. So tune in. I'll put it on Facebook, Twitter. It'll be on all the major platforms. But if you do want a refund, because a couple people reached out, they said they want their money back, that we gave them a bad guarantee. Pat O'Leary 2, Venmo. So Venmo him a request and ask for the money back. All right. Let's see. Pete Prisco, last week, he went 6-9. My mom went 10-5. So she took a 4-game lead. They were tied coming into last week. My mom is 46-31-1. Pete 42-35-1. So we'll keep going.
You said she was going to win, and she's doing it.
I told you that before we even started the show. I said my mom's going to beat this guy, and so far, so good. So let's get into our picks real quick. Thursday night, we have the Patriots-Giants. The poor Giants, man, that's going to be a blowout, I think. My mom's going New England, of course. Then we have the game in London, Tampa Bay, Carolina. She's going to go Carolina there. Jacksonville, New Orleans. She's going to go New Orleans. Kansas City, Houston. She's going to take Kansas City. That was a crazy game on Sunday night. Looks like Mahomes got his ankle stepped on. Then we got Minnesota, Philadelphia. She is going to take Minnesota. Then we have Baltimore, Cincinnati. That should be an easy one, going Baltimore there. Seattle, Cleveland. She's going to take Seattle. Washington, Miami. A battle of the beaten. Neither one of them have a win. She's going to take the Redskins there. I think they might win. They got a new coach, so they might play extra hard for that. We got Atlanta, Arizona. She is going to take Atlanta in that one. San Francisco and the Rams. She's going to take San Francisco. They're undefeated. I personally think the Rams might bounce back this week, but we'll see. Then we have Dallas and the New York Jets. Good luck to them. She's going to go Dallas. Then we have Denver, Tennessee. My mom's taking Denver. Sunday night, we have the Chargers in Pittsburgh. She's going to take the Chargers. And then Monday night, she has Green Bay beating Detroit. Shout out to Nick Sarno. He actually did troll me as well. He messaged and said that my mom was definitely wrong and that Green Bay was going to beat the Cowboys, and they did. So hats off to him. Good luck to them Monday night. So, let's get into it. So
let's do it.
I know you were saying, we were just talking about how you had an interesting thing with not vaping, but with Massachusetts hiring the taxes on the cigar industry.
So that's a reason why they have to look at something like that when a governor's doing something. And Massachusetts in 1996 says that cigars got popular for in the early to mid 90s. Cigars were all of a sudden popular. You saw lots of movies that came out in those days that the guy had a cigar.
Right.
Even sitcoms, TV shows, a lot of cigars all of a sudden. And I was in the business in 85, and I saw this coming, and wow, what's going on? And
did you own in 85?
Yes.
You did? Okay.
Yep. So we had 3 stores in Massachusetts, and the popularity of it all of a sudden gives attention to something, which is exactly what happened in the vape industry. The vape's been out there for a long time.
Right.
All of a sudden it's getting popular, and all of a sudden now the government looks into it for a few different reasons. When it came to cigars, they said a lot of people smoking cigars, and we want to make money from it.
Of course.
We're talking Massachusetts, better known as Taxachusetts, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I was born and brought up in that area, and I had 3 cigar stores that were going on, and they said, okay, we want to start taxing cigars separately than everything else. There was already sales tax on it, but we want to have a cigar tax. A tax all by itself just on this product.
So it was only on cigars, was on cigarettes and tobacco, or just cigars?
Just cigars was this tax, special tax.
Okay, they're really singling you out.
Yep.
Then.
So they said, we want to put a tax on it. We're looking for 30%.
Oh my God, that's absurd.
And I contacted all the cigar stores that were in the Boston area. There were 30 of us in that area. And I said, listen, they're looking to tax the cigars separately, and we need to get together, band together, and go up to the State House and say not to do this for the state. And they said, you're my competitor. Don't talk to me. Get out of the store. We're competitors. And I said, we can be competitors later and compete, but we should actually band together and unite.
Right, absolutely.
And go fight this, or else we're all going to go down. And they wouldn't, so I went by myself, and I fought by myself.
You went to the State House?
Yeah.
And what did you do?
As a young man, I asked to speak to every House member, every senator that I could possibly see.
Really?
And I wanted to explain the story, and I said, just little teeny industry. Cigars, 1 out of 1,000 people smoke cigars. 1 out of 1,000.
Wow, yeah, that's crazy. That's low.
And you want to put a tax just on those people. And for what? And how much do you think you're going to possibly make? Because my argument will be that if you tax it that dramatically, people are going to go over the border into New Hampshire, and they're going to buy there. And you're going to make no money, and you're going to put everybody out of business. So I went and asked everybody, and they said, it's not good for you and all this stuff, which is another story. It's a different argument that cigars are different than all other tobacco products, including cigarettes and vape. Cigars are a whole different thing, and it's not true that they're bad for you, but that's a different argument.
Well, on cigars, you're not supposed to inhale them, right? I never knew that until recently when I actually watched your show, on the Cigar Authority.
It's an all-tobacco product. There's not additives. You're not taking it into your lungs, and it's a relaxing thing, and the average cigar consumer smokes 1 to 2 cigars a week.
Oh, really?
It's not like a pack of cigarettes a day.
Tons of people smoke like 15 cigarettes a day.
Sure.
Right.
So this is a different world. There's no addictive quality like you see people standing outside restaurants smoking a cigar in between their meal.
Right, yeah.
You never see that,
I've never seen that.
Yeah, it's a whole different world. But I tried to explain that to them, and they wanted the money.
Right.
And I said, well, 30%, we're going to crash and burn. And if it happens, I have 3 stores. You're not going to make the money because I'm going to get my stores and I'm going to move over the border into New Hampshire, and I'll start off again over there because that's where my customers are going to go.
Right.
And they said, how about if we lower it to 12%? And I said, well, 12 is better than 30, but I'm still going if you do anything, because I've lived here my whole life, and I see once you get your toe in the door, that this is what ends up happening.
Right.
You'll end up going up from that point.
And have they?
So they ended up starting at 12. We moved immediately.
Yep.
There was a floor tax on the cigars, meaning that they would tax it of the stuff that I had already. 10 years in the business at that point, I created a large amount of inventory, and I would have had to pay 12% on that.
Okay.
There was no way I could pay it anyway. So I said, okay, that's it. I'm closing the stores, and I'm going to come over the border. And I opened our first store in a new state, brand new after 10 years, into Salem, New Hampshire. And as luck would have it, and as I promised, I said, I'm going to take my customers with me if I leave.
Right.
And my competitors, 30 of them that were down there, said, you think you're taking your customers with you, huh? And I said, I am. And also, I'm taking your customers with me too.
Right.
Just so you know, because that's what I expected to happen to me, so that's what you should expect to happen to you. No way, that's not what's going to happen. So I moved up here at a 12% tax. My customers followed. Some of their customers followed, and the tax increased to 15%.
Okay.
After they didn't get the amount of money that they expected to raise, they went from 15 to 20. Years later, they went to 30. Years later, they went to 40.
Oh, my God.
So right now, it's a 40% tax. So you have a $10 cigar is $14 in that state.
Wow.
Along with sales tax compounded onto it.
Right.
So I sell my product cheaper than the store in Massachusetts buys it for.
Right.
So they can't compete. Of the 30 stores that were in Massachusetts at that time, in the Boston area, one survived.
Really?
One's still in business. All 29 are gone, and the guy that's left is for sale if somebody wants to buy them.
Is it really?
Yeah, and I would recommend not buying against it because I'm taking his customers too.
Right.
That was the goal of it. We grew not only from the biggest store that was in Boston at the time, we turned into the biggest store in America, and then we grew into the biggest store in the world.
So Two Guys Smoke Shop as it
Highest
sits
volume,
today?
independently owned brick and mortar cigar retailer in the world.
Wow.
Now cigars, I say it proudly that we are the biggest, but it's a small niche industry.
Mm-hmm.
There's about 4,000 cigar stores in the United States.
That's still a lot, though. 4,000 brick and mortar stores?
Yeah, brick and mortar stores, and maybe another 4,000 around the rest of the world. 80% of all cigars are sold in the United States. That's where the bulk of it is anyway.
Oh, really?
But we became the biggest, and a lot of that is getting the word out about we're a cigar store,
right,
and what we do and what we do differently than everybody else. And one of the things is any store, any business, whatever it is, wants to market and promote themselves, which I'm a big marketer and promoter. The problem is I'm in the tobacco business. And if I want to advertise myself, most newspapers, most radio stations, and most TV stations will not accept our money.
Really?
Because we sell the evil weed, which at one time would be looked as marijuana,
right,
which is okay.
Yeah, not anymore in Massachusetts.
It's tobacco.
Yeah.
And it's not against the law to advertise cigars. It is against the law to advertise cigarettes, again, a different product. But it's not against the law to advertise cigars. But most companies choose not to. They don't want to allow cigar smoking to be there. So my hands are tied. If I want to advertise on Facebook, I'm not allowed to because I'm cigars. If I want to advertise on YouTube, if I want to advertise on the internet, you just can't do it. You're not allowed to actually advertise your product. So I had to come up with an idea over the years, many, many different promotions and things that I would do to try to drive business and build my business.
Right.
And I had to actually look out of the norm. Mm-hmm. And I'll go back to 2010 where I heard about this podcast thing.
Where did you hear about that? Because in 2010, I was like 18, 19 years old, and I had no idea what a podcast was until about 3 years ago when I found Joe Rogan.
So my daughter had told me, teenage daughter at the time, and
okay,
she said, I need to get on social media. What's that?
Yeah.
So I'm older, and I have a teenage daughter, and she says, you need to get on Facebook. You need to get on maybe Twitter at the time. I don't think there was an Instagram. And I said, okay, and I have her set it up for me, and people are being my friends and stuff, and people are writing it to me, and I'm not doing anything with it. And she says, you got to respond to these people. I said, well, do it for me. I don't know how to do this. And she says, I can't because I can't answer the questions.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to run businesses at the same time, and I'm getting bombarded with people asking me things and stuff. And I said, I can't do this. I need a one-directional type of thing. Where I say something and that's where it ends.
Right.
So I actually got a book at the airport one day of social media. And I was reading in that book of Adam Curry, he was a VJ from MTV. Do you ever
What's
hear
a
of
VJ?
him? VJ, video disc
Oh, a
jockey.
video disc jockey. Okay.
So MTV, which was the
that was the
music
thing,
right?
Oh, yeah.
So this guy comes up and says, "Okay, there's radio stations and things, but how about a basically a talk format thing that goes on the internet, and we'll call it a podcast."
Right.
So he creates the first podcast. And I'm reading the story about him, and I said, wow, here is a talk show that's on the internet. And the great thing about the internet is it's there forever, as opposed to a commercial that I would run that would be there at the moment that this happened, if they would accept my money.
Yes.
In the area that it's playing. But this thing will play all the time, everywhere, to everybody.
Yeah.
And I can actually do a show, and it'll be out there forever, and anybody can listen anytime they want. So I did, and then in 2010, I started the Cigar Authority. And as I was reading the story about him, it says that you can become the authority on the subject by simply doing a podcast and giving information out there, and you'll soon become the authority on that subject. So the Cigar Authority, I said, okay.
Right.
There wasn't a lot of hard work put into that. But
so that's where the name came from.
So I'll become the authority on the subject. I know my subject well, so I don't feel terrible about giving bad information. And let me see what ends up happening with this. And it was a grind at the beginning, because people would say, just like you were saying 3 years ago, what is a podcast?
Right.
And I would say to my customers, hey, check out our podcast. Well, what's that?
Yeah.
What's a podcast? And do you have an iPhone? Yes, I do. Well, there's a little button on it. See the button that says, oh, I never knew what that was. Okay. And the idea was actually to drive business to my retail store.
Right.
But the podcast was much bigger than localized. It was the world. And we got into 70 countries. And
man. I can't even name 70 countries.
Right. And people from all around the world listening to this, and grew into, now there's other people that are podcasting too, but it became the biggest thing. I mean, we have 200,000-300,000 people listening to our show,
right?
And advertisers, supporters of the show, which is the cigar companies, because we're direct target marketing. Anybody who listens to our show, the Cigar Authority podcast, would most likely be interested in cigars.
Right.
If you don't like cigars at all, or don't care to know anything about cigars, you'd see the Cigar Authority and you probably wouldn't click on it.
Right, absolutely.
But if you're a cigar smoker, you see it and you say, oh, I wonder what this is all about. And then maybe if we put on a good show, give some information, some entertainment value to it, and you get to know us, like us, trust us, and feel that there's a value there, you start following, hopefully subscribing to the show.
Right.
And now the show's been on. We'll be celebrating our 500th episode later on in November.
Right, I heard that.
And just April will become our 10-year anniversary.
10 years.
10 years
and
ago.
you just kept going.
Every single week.
When did you really start to get traction? Because I know in 2010 it must have been 12 listeners, 22 listeners.
Yeah, it was slow.
Right.
And I would say we got our first advertiser, somebody that was supporting the show, 3 years into it.
Right.
And, believe me, I'm a salesman at heart and trying to sell it and tell people about it, but nobody knew about it, and it was a small listenership because it was a small amount of people that did it. But as the podcasting grew, more people got into podcasting, they start looking, searching in Apple, for instance, cigar, and they say, oh, what's this Cigar Authority thing?
Right.
Let me check on this. And there was competitors that are there, and they've come and gone. Part of, like anything, my business, 35 years, we'll be celebrating next year. The podcast, 10 years, is consistency. I don't give up. I consistently go forward. It's been the success of all my business that I do. That is, I'm consistent. I keep going, keep improving. As much as I hate listening to myself, trying to improve myself,
right,
and make the show better. And when the show gets better, more money comes in, more business gets developed from it, and it grows and grows and everything. And it's wonderful watching you.
Right.
You're how many weeks now?
This is 7. 7 weeks in. 7 weeks.
That was, oh my God, I can't even remember. 7 weeks in.
It seems like it's been a while.
Yeah.
I met you guys a few weeks before, so.
500 I got coming up. 500.
500, that's crazy.
And we do it every single week. I've never missed a week.
Yep.
But you do it by yourself, which I got to applaud you for. It's happened to me maybe 2 or 3 times that my co-host didn't show up.
Right. That happened to me today. I had you fill in. You're filling in remarkably. There we go.
Doing it totally by yourself. If I didn't fill in, you have a 30-minute show that you'd have to do totally by yourself.
And I thought about that because I was like, I'm going to do it no matter what. There's no way I don't show up.
And I have done it 3 times, and it's very, very hard.
Right.
Nobody to talk to. You're basically talking to the screen. In your case, we didn't start with audio and video. You're starting with, you can hear Conor commentary on Facebook. You can see it on YouTube. You can also, the majority of people that are listening to the show, because it's a listening to format, but you got it all going on. That's not how we started, but you never know what's going to end up happening, especially in my business, which is tobacco.
Right.
That someday YouTube may say, no, we're going to take it all down.
Absolutely.
They could do it overnight.
Just look what they just did to the vape people. Overnight. They can just collapse your business.
We have some here at Studio 21, which 2 years ago I decided, because I was doing my podcast, and we have an engineer, and we got a nice set, and we started putting money into it. Let's make it available for other people to do. We paid for it anyway.
Right.
So let's try this. And we created a podcast studio, and I tried looking up podcast studios, who else is doing such a thing, and
nobody.
There was nobody.
Nobody.
So it's not even a model I could look at and say, this is how it's done.
Right.
Although it's starting to pick up now.
Yeah.
We're seeing some pop up. Most of them are focused only on the podcast, the audio part.
Okay, yeah.
Not a full, video studio.
Yeah, audio and video, and with an engineer. They let you use their equipment in some cases. But there's so much that happens on the back end after the show is complete. It's a lot of work prepping for the show, getting ready for it, doing the show. But then it's all the work that happens after. If there's editing that needs to be done, then there's all the keywords and things that have to put in there, the show notes that end up happening, and then the delivery system to 30 different podcast catches, the YouTube, the Facebook, the sharing, everything that goes on, and all these things have to happen. And I know this because at the beginning, I didn't know these things had to happen.
Right.
And what was happening after my first 7 episodes, nobody was listening, because how could you find me? How did they know about it? And all these things had to happen. So I think having the podcast, I can help you, having the studio, help you get to where I was 3 years ago in 7 weeks.
Right, exponentially faster.
Because I know what I didn't know.
Right,
and you don't know what I didn't know. And why should you have to go through all that? So here it is, and we have now about 20 podcast shows that happen every single week.
And that happened in 2 years, so it started it was just you, and then you took on one person, and then from there you've grown it like all the other businesses.
Yeah. And that's the plan. What could I do with this? Is this something that, we're at an odd spot. Studio 21 is on the second floor of Two Guys Smoke Shop in Salem,
So many people are shocked when I tell them where it is, because a lot of people from the area are like, I drive by there all the time. That's where it is? And I'm like, this an awesome studio is just sitting up above it.
Right. So it is a bad location, but it's the location I had. It's the location I was using. Mm-hmm. I needed to smoke cigars, and the only place you're allowed to is smoke shops anyway. So I said, okay, let me do this. But can you envision a model like this in, let's say, in downtown Boston near the colleges?
Oh, man, yeah.
On the ground floor with glass windows out front and people looking at it as it was going on. I think this is a model that could work big time and end up helping a lot of people out there, because people want to get their message out. And the old way of getting your message out, which is radio and TV and newspapers,
it's dying.
They are dying.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate. It's the man that made the typewriter. The typewriter is an awesome thing, and there's companies that made typewriters. If they didn't get into the keyboard, they're out of business, right?
Absolutely.
It's the buggy whip guy. If he was making buggy whips, and it was a big thing back in the 1800s and stuff, the automobile comes out, and that guy doesn't get into automobiles, he's in big trouble.
You got to adapt.
If you have a business and you're counting on newspaper, radio, and TV, you're missing the opportunity with podcasting. Podcasting, they should be, I think you're going to see the day, and I think it's going to come soon, that people are going to bash the doors down to say, I want to advertise on podcasts.
I agree.
So I believe in this. I'm not just selling it to people for podcasting, upping your business and upping your presence. I think everyone that creates a show like yourself has an opportunity out there for people to come in and want to advertise and promote on that show, because I can't believe your numbers already. I mean, you're doing better than we were 3 years into it. I have a very niche thing, and you're talking about all kinds of different subjects.
I know, I'm all over the board.
So you're open to a lot more people than my little niche was. But there's thousands and thousands of people listening to you every single week.
Right, and I appreciate that. Thank you, everyone who's watching and listening.
You as whatever business you have that you're watching this, wouldn't you want them to hear about your business on this show?
Right.
And let me tell you what happens to it too. I've met so many people over the years that in the cigar industry, because that's my podcast about cigars, but they see me at a trade show or something, and I'm not David Garofalo, the owner of Two Guys Smoke Shop, the largest cigar retailer in the world, which I'm very proud of.
Right.
And that's how they should know me.
Absolutely.
That's not how they know me. They know me as David Garofalo from the Cigar Authority podcast.
That's so funny. I remember you telling me that, and I was like, that's miraculous. That they're like, oh, it's the podcast guy, even though you're the largest cigar distributor in the world.
Which I had to work for 35 years to, and I did an awful lot more work of Two Guys Smoke Shop than I did of this.
Right.
And this is how they know me. And they really know me. They know who my wife is, who my daughter is, who my dog is. They know so much about me because we talk and we get to know each other one direction.
Yeah.
And they feel like they know me so well, and I have no idea who they are. I've never met them in my life. I never heard their name before.
And he has, Conor has that to look forward to.
Yes.
Dave and I were down at a podcasting convention, Podfest.
Yeah, in Florida.
We go attend different things to stay up to date on it so that we can bring all that back here and use the knowledge to help everybody on the network.
That's why everything looks and sounds so well.
That's right.
And we decided, okay, we're going to go smoke a cigar. So we went into a cigar store. We bought our cigars, and we were talking to the guys working there. And then we went and sat down. We're smoking. One of the employees came over and said, "Are you Ed?" I said, "Yeah." "Oh, I recognize your voice from the Cigar Authority."
Oh, really?
They don't know who I was.
They didn't know. They
knew who he. His voice.
They heard me talk,
and that's funny because even on this, you can recognize your voice, but no one actually sees you.
No,
because you're behind the scenes.
That's the other thing. If people are only listening to the podcast, they don't even know what the people on stage look like.
Right.
So they didn't recognize Dave.
Yeah,
and didn't hear him
said,
talk.
"Oh my God, the Cigar Authority, blah 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 blah." And I'm talking, and then all of a sudden it says, "Oh my God, are you Dave?"
Right.
I am, and I say, "Oh my God," and take pictures with us and all. I have no idea who they were or anything.
And then you posted a picture smoking the cigar
where I was. At that point, the cover was blown.
Yeah,
and then people came down to this.
Oh, really? People started coming in.
Little flash mob. All of a sudden happens, right? Oh my God, there he is.
Josh, was that his name? He and his wife were at Disney, and he said, "Oh, we're over at Disney. Can we come down and smoke a cigar with you?"
And people came down.
Really?
And this is what you have to look forward to, I promise you, that people end up knowing so much. And you got to be a true blue guy, too, because they like you and then they trust you.
Right.
So trust is an important thing. Somebody ends up trusting me. Oh boy. It means a lot to me that I have to actually deliver at that point. So I have to stay true to something where we're talking about cigars and do we like it, do we don't like it or anything. I got to stay true to it. It doesn't matter if they're an advertiser or anything.
I was just going to ask you that.
Yeah.
So if someone offers you money to advertise their cigar and you don't believe in the product, you just have to go the other way.
I'd say to them, because I sell cigars for a living too, because they want to advertise doesn't mean I'm going to take the cigars. I'm not going to sell them.
Right.
Or I'm not going to give it a high review and say it's a great cigar if it's an odd thing. If you want to put an ad in there, yes, I'll take your ad. Here's the advertising thing that comes in here. But I'm not going to stand behind it if I don't believe in it either.
Right. So you're not going to smoke it and say, I'm enjoying this.
I'm not. But what I will say, nothing.
Right.
I'll leave it alone because I'm not going to beat them up or anything.
Right.
If they're not an advertiser and I do smoke the cigar, I may beat them up.
Right. Just give them your opinion.
Yeah. And again, it's a product that is a personal thing to begin with. I happen to like vanilla ice cream over and above chocolate, right? So I have vanilla ice cream and I say vanilla ice cream. I love vanilla ice cream. And you like chocolate better. I'm not right.
Right.
I'm not
I was
wrong.
just going to say that. Yeah.
There's not a right or wrong when
Actually, my favorite description you ever gave on the show, and I won't mention the cigar. This cigar tastes like hype.
Yeah. Sometimes something's overly hyped and promoted.
Right.
And that's it behind it. And if you get to know me and read through that thing, and they say, what are you getting for flavors? A lot of hype. It's very negative. It's all hype. It didn't live up to its expectation, because I don't want to bash anybody, because these are people's businesses also.
Right, of course.
That bring that thing. So my job isn't to hurt anybody or anything, but I got to stay true to the listener also. So I'm not going to lie. What I say is my opinion. It's true, and that's it.
Right.
Yeah.
And now, just as far as podcasting goes, you're saying as far as a studio in Boston, you think would be massive. Do you have plans to grow this, or are you kind of just happy with what it is?
Well, I like to really prove a model.
Okay.
And a proof of concept. It takes 3 years. When we had our grand opening up here, and it was 2 years ago, the day we opened, the place was jam-packed. I put a lot of promotion out there and said the first ever podcast studio. We have a barista that makes coffee, and anybody can come up and watch the show. We can come up and people can come and see your show live.
Absolutely.
On Wednesdays at 5 o'clock.
Wednesdays at 5, that's right here above Two Guys Smoke Shop. People have.
Yeah, so you'd come up and you sit and watch the show live. I think it's pretty cool if you've never seen a podcast
operate. It's actually a great setup. People just can't see it.
So the idea is, let me prove this concept if it works. So opening day, the place is jam-packed. I don't know anybody that's here, and I'm walking over to people that are standing here. And we did podcasts all day long that day. And I said, geez, what brings you in? And they said, I heard about this, and, I'm in the radio business. And I said, really? And they said, yeah. I wanted to come up. It almost feels like this is a wake or a funeral.
Right. for the radio industry, right?
Yeah. He'd look at it and say, oh my God, look at this thing.
Right.
If you want to do your own TV and radio show, it's going to cost you $1 million to do it.
Right.
As opposed to the little amount that it costs to do a radio and TV show every single week.
Exactly, yeah.
And because this is what has happened and changed, and you can embrace it and prosper by it, or you can sit back and say, well, I don't like it and this isn't going to, well, let me tell you, this is happening.
Yep.
Like it or not, this is happening, and take advantage of a situation that's happening right there. You also can do it yourself. Anybody can do a podcast by themselves. You've probably heard them.
I have, yeah.
Usually the audio isn't that good.
Some are better than others.
Ed is...
That's why we have Ed.
He's an engineer.
He's an expert, yeah.
Yeah, he's a producer. He's producing the show, but he's also engineering the sound and the video and everything to make it as professional and as beautiful as possible to do it, so that you come off as professional, as beautiful, or your guest comes up. And hopefully when you bring a guest up here, you're not embarrassed to bring them up there. And they come up, and usually I get a wow.
Yeah, that's what I've gotten from people. I've had people who live in the area, and it's always like, "Wow, that's just where you're producing."
Yeah, I had no idea.
No one knows.
Maybe as they're walking through a cigar store, they're not thinking that. But you notice we're fixing up the front inside. The cigar store.
You guys are putting that up quick.
So it's always trying to improve. I don't know if there's been in the past 7 weeks any changes, but we always are improving the camera angles. We're improving the equipment that comes out. It's an ongoing thing, the behind-the-scenes thing for people to find you.
Right.
There's just things going on all the time, and you really can't do it all yourself unless you're full-time, and people are busy. Mm-hmm. So I think it's a winner, and I think that, as I say, that day when people were saying, oh my God, this looks like this is the end of some of the industry, one guy came up to me and said, would you franchise this? I'd like to buy a franchise of this.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
I said, well, today's day one.
Right.
I don't know if this thing can make a profit. I don't know if it's a proven concept, anybody gets behind it or what. I said, this is going to take me a few years to figure this out.
Right.
Because you want it to, somebody ends up putting their good money ahead. You want to know that this is a winner.
Right.
The testing has to be with the guy that originated the product. So McDonald's tested and tested and tested until they finally say, okay, this is a winner. The same thing happens there. Does it become something that I open multiple stores with? Well, I don't want to open multiple stores on something that doesn't work either.
Right.
So it has to be proven and tested. Whether it be a franchise or that I open multiple stores, I need this model to actually be proven. And if it works on top of the second floor in a cigar shop, it's certainly going to work on the bottom floor in a better, because it's not in the right place. There's no walk-by traffic.
Right.
We're basically on a highway. We're on a
right. You can
highway.
see outside. It says the 21 podcast, but if you're not paying attention, I mean, I've driven by a million times.
Right. So we'll see how it ends up going. I need, as I told you when you wanted to start here, my success of this podcast is the success of the podcasters.
Right.
If you're not successful, I cannot be successful. So our job is to make the show successful. And if the show is successful, then we can end up growing from that point. And part of that is exactly what you're doing. So I'm proud of you, by the way.
I appreciate it. I appreciate all the help.
I love what you're doing. You come in prepared, and you come in 7 for 7. You've shown up.
Yeah.
I get the message from you today that your guy is not showing up. Will I do it? Of course.
I appreciate it.
I'm here to help anyway, but you got to be ready for, I'm not here, and the guy didn't show up either.
I know.
But as you said, you would have done it anyway.
I would have asked Ed a bunch of questions if I had to. I was ready.
I'm always here for you.
The show must go on, right?
That's exactly what I thought.
That's show business. This is show business.
This is show business. All right.
Wow, that was fast.
I know. It went by quick. Wow. All right. So, Cigar Authority, it is Saturdays 12 to 2 live, right?
It is.
All right. Perfect. And then you actually wrote a book. You want to tell them where to get it?
I wrote a book to help brick and mortar retailers. It's called David versus Goliath, How to Compete and Beat the Online Giant, 100 Proven Promotions for any brick and mortar retailer. It doesn't have to be in the cigar business. It's not about the cigars. It's about helping brick and mortar out there. So if you're a brick and mortar retailer, find it on Amazon and all the places that they sell books. David versus Goliath by David Garofalo.
There you go. A lot of people can use that. It's tough for brick and mortar stores. So tune into that, and we'll be back next week, Wednesday at 5. Thanks, guys.
The views and opinions expressed by the hosts, guests, or callers of this program do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the Studio 21 Podcast Café, the United Podcast Network, its partners, or affiliates.